I want to echo the concerns about funding for, for resiliency efforts, for pre-fire mitigation, and maybe add a little bit of specifics. We have seen millions of dollars of federal funding go into private land fuels reduction and defensible space treatments through FEMA, through the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, through the National Fire Plan in recent decades. And some of that money we saw, actually the benefits of that during the flat fire, for example. So that's on the private land side of the equation. On the public land side of the equation, just in the last 5 years, the federal government has invested through the bipartisan infrastructure law, through the Inflation Reduction Act, over $40 million into the Deschutes National Forest through the wildfire crisis strategy. I mentioned the Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project earlier. Our job at the collaborative was to build community support so that the Forest Service could implement wide-scale fuels reduction and forest restoration works. And in the first 10 years of the Deschutes Collaborative Forest Project, we saw 100,000 acres, spanning from Black Butte Ranch all the way into South County. We saw 100,000 acres treated, and those acres helped us hold the Millie Fire at bay, hold the Pole Creek Fire at bay, hold the Bachelor Complex lava fire at bay, hold the Darlene Fire at bay, hold the Roslyn Road Fire at bay, so that we did not lose probably hundreds of homes in our community. So it's critically important for the federal government to keep investing in those fuels reduction efforts in our region. And to go to the policy end of the equation, we have seen a lot of focus from this current Congress on get rid of the environmental regulations, then we can get the work done on the ground. The problem with that, I really want to point out that is from a policy perspective, is a flawed approach, because here on the east side of the Cascades, it's dry forests. They've been logged, sometimes 3 cycles of logging. There is no valuable material in the forest. So you can take away all the regulations you want. You cannot make it financially viable to go out and treat acres just off the value of the wood that you're taking out. We need to subsidize. We need to invest in our forests to get them to a more natural, healthy, resilient condition. And that's why, for example, those $40 million of wildfire crisis strategy money were absolutely critical to getting us to where we are today.
Thank you. Councilor Osborne, anything to add?
Sure. I want to add just a little bit of a human touch to this conversation. So the federal decision making at this point in time and the effects of the shutdown are affecting our community members in a very impactful way. So right now, it's my understanding that we are about 40% behind on our mitigation work across the country. That's the work that our firefighters, our neighbors, our husbands are supposed to be doing, and they're not at work right now, or their work is limited. This is putting financial stress on families. This is putting a lot of people on unemployment, and then with access to food being limited, this is just a spiraling, cascading effect. But in addition to that, it puts a lot of professional stress on the workforce. So we're having an exodus of the workforce for people who need to find additional sources of income to take care of their families. And then the third component of that is with the shutdown, there's not access to the training to train new firefighters who will either make our firefighting suppression and mitigation workforce more robust, but also to replace those who are having to leave. And so I'm very worried about what's happening to the families in my community.
Thank you. Yeah, this theme of the work has to persist, it has to be consistent. There's this backlog to address, and we have to be proactive in thinking, all of you representing our community, how do we keep this community safe? When there are these fits and starts, it makes it very hard to ensure continuity, and that's essential to keeping everybody safe.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor Keebler, a quick follow-on to something that you had said. So the City of Bend offered a resolution on the EPA's proposed rollback to the endangerment findings. Can you share what was in that resolution and why the city decided to do that?
Yeah, so we made an official comment into the record on that rulemaking, which is a super accessible way for the public to talk about federal policy, of course. But really, in Wildfire is one of the huge existential reasons why it doesn't make any sense for the federal government to start saying that climate change isn't a thing that endangers this country and the people that live here. It is, right? And I think this we worry that this will compound the effects that we've already seen from the federal government pulling back money that we were supposed to use for mitigation, for emergency preparedness, to plan. And if we don't even have this bedrock finding that says wildfire is a threat that we can work against by combating climate change, we're not going to see any of this funding flow, right? So that's the connection with the policy and the funding. And I think generally also this represents our communities, and I think all of our communities care about the environment, the outdoors, access to the outdoors and public lands. That is a huge value of this community. So we felt it was really appropriate to weigh in on this rule.
That's great, thank you. Senator Baughman, is there anything similar coming from the state level?
Yeah, I think you can look at, again, a very bipartisan approach to getting ready for the wildfire that's coming and addressing it sustainably once it happens. When we talk about kitchen table issues that people actually care about, this is what we're talking about. I don't want my kitchen table to burn down. And so, I mean, what I hear time and again from constituents all around each of our jurisdictions, and our delegation gets it, Representative Bynum and our senators get it. But I feel as though there is an approach, and it's nowhere more apparent in this endangerment finding, of abandoning rural Oregon and rural communities who are going to live forever with wildfire. And we need our federal partners to step up. It's abandoning rural Oregon is bad for economic development. It's bad for public safety. And it's bad for, as Councilor Osborne said, it's bad for the people in our community who rely on these jobs to bring home a paycheck.